So, firstly, your business isn't scalable until you're replaceable. Shouldn't be about you. And even if exiting your business isn't your priority, it's just something you should do to reach the next level of growth in your business. That's the first thing. And by the way, a buyer doesn't want to buy a job, they want to buy a business. Complexity kills momentum. So keep it simple. Visionary founders often do too many things. If they looked at what was giving them the best bang for buck, the 80-20, and double down on the things that were working, they'll get there faster. Keep it simple. And then the third thing, and I think we've talked about this a lot in this podcast, lead with clarity. When the team knows exactly what good looks like, they'll surprise you every day.
On today's show, I am delighted to introduce you to Lloyd Thompson, founder of Virtual DOO and the author of 9 Ways to Leave Your Day-to-Day Operations, widely known as the Process Guru. Lloyd helps founders transform chaotic, hero-driven businesses into scalable, predictable machines. He's worked with countless SMEs that hit that classic scaling ceiling, guiding them to simplify operations, streamline workflows, and build systems that unlock real growth. Lloyd's specialty is turning complexity into clarity, and we're going to hear a lot about that today, creating processes that free founders from firefighting and give teams the structure they need to perform at their best. If you're a leader scaling beyond the limits of your current systems, this conversation will be invaluable. As ever, I invite you to go and grab a cup of coffee, notepad and pen, and enjoy the show. Lloyd, you are very welcome to the ScaleX Insider podcast. Delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
It's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me here, Brendan.
Yeah, appreciate it. You're doing the late shift tonight. The baby's just in bed, 9 p.m. in Australia. So thank you for sitting up to share value with our guests. Much appreciated. Look, you know, and we're very aligned on this, our vision is to inspire, connect and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So Lloyd, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
I think it's about having a business that supports you, not the other way around. A lot of founders hit 2 to 3 million and then suddenly they're working 70 hours a week, missing their kids' stuff, stressed out of their minds, and they've scaled revenue, but they've also scaled chaos to go with it. And I think scaling should be about focusing on strategy and your passions. In my case, it's being able to get out and have a life and spend time with my child. There's different things for different people, but spend time on strategy. But also grow your business without growing more exhausted.
Makes complete sense. I always say the difference between growing and scaling. Growing is doing more with more. Scaling is doing more with less differently. And it's that understanding that what got you to here won't get you to there. You're known as the process guru. How did that come about? What's the context for the fact that actually, you're now devoting your life to supporting founders systemize their businesses and get their lives back?
I would say I'm more of a pragmatist, but process guru, I'll keep that. I think it started with me becoming aware that this was something I was good at. First you've got to know that this is the thing. This is, and what I had to go through to think, this is something for me. This is where I can really make a difference in teams and systems through processes. Was my background was working in banking, investment banking, putting in systems and real-time payments and trading platforms. And a defining moment would have been a project that I was tasked with to coordinate the replacement of a system that had found its way, a legacy system that has found its tentacles into nearly every department in the bank. It was the system that approved credit limits. And in order to replace this for regulatory purposes, it meant coordinating a insane release with 60 people on the plan, lots of complex moving parts. And so I had to coordinate this and break it down into its pieces. How are we going to get this thing done? This is the kind of plan where there's a point of no return, where if you get halfway through the upgrade, there's a point where you can't roll back because it won't be fixed in time before Monday morning. And if it's not fixed in time by Monday morning, it's going to have an impact on trading for the bank. So it was one of those. And it was defining because, we had 60 people in the plan, multiple time zones. A bank effectively runs by like lots of small companies, multiple divisions, equities and retail banking. And the principles that I applied there are the same principles that I've applied later on in my business today. And it was about having a plan that was simple enough that everyone could follow and could be communicated. Having a process that was rehearsed over and over before the Big Bang weekend. So making sure that we've got lots of teams that they know their part in this process. They've rehearsed through this process before the big event. And there were some parts we weren't able to rehearse because it would mean trying to build a replica of a system that just we couldn't build a replica of the whole thing. So the planning, the process, having a communication plan. So we had a 24/7 war room going, one of those desk phones of people from all sorts of different departments and teams running 24/7 so everyone can check off the plan. And then the final piece, the most important piece, is being able to delegate. I'm just the person orchestrating, but being able to delegate. And that delegation was not just the technical folks who are running important parts of the upgrade who had rehearsed it over and over. It's some folks who are running around and getting last minute approvals from people in the bank who know you're going to start messing with their trading system and they're going to be very defensive of that. So having taken that experience, I thought, this is something I'm good at. I'm good at running remote teams and dealing with complexity and making things simple. And I had an opportunity where at some point I met a business coach. And funnily enough, we were talking about surfing earlier. I met a business coach in my surfing community. And I was saying, I've got this. I work with teams, engineering teams, global teams all over the world. And a lot of my teams are remote. Some of them are on site. I can deal with a great deal of complexity. But what I'd really like to do is be able to work remotely and still be able to provide, solve these problems, make complex simple, make things run along smoothly. And he said, gee, I've got clients like that. I've got people who are currently drowning in chaos and having problems making things run operationally smooth. And that was the beginning. So he introduced me to one customer. And I had some conversations while I was still in a corporate role. And at one point, I just took a big chance and quit my corporate job. And I agreed to go on a retainer with my first customer. And his pain was, he was doing 60, 70-hour weeks, scattergunning the team with tasks. It was like that whack-a-mole game. Everyone's running on adrenaline and it feels like the emergency department. And so this was an e-commerce business, maybe 30 people in the team. And really this founder had no real idea of what a good system looked like to manage the team in an orderly way. It was more like if we need to put a change through, let's just grab everybody, have lots and lots and lots of meetings. Whether it's a campaign, it's the same every single time. And so this kind of problem about a visionary founder who doesn't know the way how to organize, put in repeatable rhythms and structures, I've discovered is really commonplace. And these visionary founders have brilliance in that they can come up with products and they can sell at scale. Typically marketing agencies and e-commerce is that I've worked with the most. But the things like putting in repeatable rhythms, dashboards, feedback loops, that's the stuff that destroys their soul, and that's where they're not rather spend their time. And so having worked with a few clients like that, I guess that's how I've come to be known as a process guru.
Brilliant.
And yeah.
Brilliant. There's so much in that, and I'm smiling as you speak because so much of it resonates, and it will resonate with our listeners. There's a number of things that I want to pick up on. I want to ensure that we address throughout the course of the conversation. One was the fact that you delegated, and I see fear of delegation, fear of losing control as as something that founders typically resist. And the point of no return, you talked about when you put that plan in place, there was a point of no return. There is a messy middle in every change
Yes.
process that I feel people kind of retreat from. It's finding that psyche, that mindset, that understanding of the bigger vision to actually move beyond that. So I want to pick up on that point of no return, the ability to delegate. But let's start with the kind of, you use the term drowning in chaos. Typically the founders that you're working with are drowning in chaos. What does that look like? When you're first engaged, just, I feel awareness precedes understanding, understanding precedes change, so that for people listening, they might feel this, but what does it look like if you walk into a business drowning in chaos? What is it characterized by?
That founder is like the answering machine for everybody. So that delegation hasn't worked very well. And so accountability has, in my mind, that's a symptom of being able to delegate and put decent accountability in place. So look, you're accountable for this area. You own this. This is your lane. Whether that's marketing, sales, IT, finance, delivery. And as a result, what happens is the founder is still making all of the decisions or making too many of them. And so that means that the founder has been unable to pull themselves out of the day-to-day operations. And so they are struggling to focus on strategy, and therefore they're struggling to shake the tree for new business and find new deals. So I would say time poor founders are predominantly who we serve because they've been sucked into operations and they're just being asked questions from their team because of struggling to delegate and being able to set up decent accountability structures. And I guess just while I'm there, another lens is operational smoothness. But these two things tend to come together. So they're time poor because they're getting sucked into the operations. And if the operations was just humming along nicely, perhaps they wouldn't be spending so much time there. So the two classic kind of businesses that we're working with are time poor founders, founder dependent businesses, and problems in operations. And problems in operations are going to look like there might be people performance issues. Perhaps there's they've hired someone, it's not working out, and now the founder has to deal with it. Or the founder is picking up the pieces because they don't trust the team member to be accountable for dealing with something. Or the founder is still dealing with customer service issues because people want to talk to the founder. So it really comes down to the founder still is, they have a team, but they're really like a team full of helpers rather than a team that own things. That's the difference, I think.
A team that owns things. I mean, we hear it all of the time. And it becomes self-serving in many respects. It's this vicious circle that, they haven't learned the art of delegating. There isn't a plan in place. There isn't clarity of where they're going. No one knows what they're accountable for. So you get this chaotic situation where they stay down in the weeds and just reaffirm to themselves why they have to be there. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but what's the root cause of this chaos?
I mean, I think it really is around clarity. I think clarity is the thing. Like if the founder was able to say, look, this is your area. You run marketing. This is how we are going to measure the outputs of marketing. Marketing, we're going to see, how many appointments, how many qualified leads are going to appear in the calendar. This is what good looks like, and these are your financial limits before you need to talk to me. They're able to delegate and let go of that area. The problem is they haven't felt like they can let go of the reins because they're in this weird vicious cycle where the team come to them with a question and then they just answer the question. And unfortunately, that then creates this loop where oh, I'm a team member. I'm now being trained that if I come with a question, I'll get an answer. But the founder also needs to go through something and break that cycle themselves, and they need to let the team own it. And I believe that that happens through good delegation and ownership, but also coaching. So not giving them the answer and saying, okay, well, if you've come to me with a problem, what options are you suggesting, and what one would you go with? And I've heard a great framework, and we use this one a lot. It's called the 131, and it's a simple case of saying if someone comes to you with a problem, one problem, give me three options. It doesn't have to be three, but it sounds good in this context. Three options, and one might be do nothing, and then one is what's the thing that you would do. And so as you've gone through this process of saying what's your 131, you as the founder are now feeling more comfortable over time zooming out. If you think that they're choosing good options, unfortunately, if they're not choosing what you think are good options, then you need to go through another process and ask more questions and say, oh, why did you choose this option? And if you ask more questions around why they chose that, you might actually find that they came up with a better option than what you had in your mind in the first place. But if they're choosing something that's really you're sure that's not right, then that's valuable training. So I think you have to go through this in order to come out, as a founder, you need to go through this process of letting go. Unless you've got someone like a general manager, a COO, a director of operations, or one person that you've got between you and the team, but even then, you still need to go through a similar process with them. You need to be able to trust them and go through that process.
Yeah, again, resonates so strongly. We actually use the 131 in our own business.
Okay.
Something that I used to say to the team members who came to my door. I always said I had an open door policy, but my only request is that if you want my time, that you have already considered those three options. And often the very simple question of saying, well, what would you do if I wasn't here? Just step me through that process, your thinking process. If I wasn't here and you had to make a decision, what would that look like? And it's always very powerful. I mean, ultimately you start to train people in the art of decision making and in the process of decision making, and you get to a point where actually they're empowered to make their own decisions. But it becomes self-fulfilling in terms of continuing to be stuck in that chaos if you're answering all of the questions and then you feel that you don't have enough time to get to the vision stuff because actually you're being sucked in. No one can make a decision around here without kind of involving me because you always give the answer.
And I like what you said about what would you do if I wasn't around, because that's actually one of the questions that I ask to founders. I say, what would you do? What would happen if you were away for 6 weeks in your business? And it's a really telling sign, their answer, because quite often they just laugh. And they laugh not because they find it funny, they laugh because they sense that in 1 or 2 weeks things are going to start to go wrong. And so that's a really telling sign that they've built something that's not got proper accountability infrastructure in place, and it's running on founder dependent operating system. Or sticky tape OS.
Sticky tape OS. I love this. So, I mean, again, creating awareness amongst our listeners. If you feel that you have a challenge in delegating, that you've found yourself saying no one's accountable around here, no one takes responsibility. If you're feeling time poor, working more, missing kind of really important moments in your life because the business is sucking you in. If you can't answer that question positively in terms of the what would I do, or how would this business operate if I was to take 6 weeks away, there's a clue here that actually your business isn't running with an operational smoothness that ultimately will create more value in the business. So let's say you're engaged Lloyd, take us through that process. I mean, what does it look like? Somebody calls you in. Typically, what size of business, both in terms of revenue, team size,
Hmm.
and what does kind of week one look like?
Yeah.
And let's step through the process of actually getting founders to the point where they're feeling less burnt out and starting to get a sense that this business is
Mm.
less dependent on them.
So typically, yeah, founders will come to me through referral, or they will do a very quick assessment form I've got, so I can just qualify them and see if I can help them. So I've just got a submit form, and I can see what size business they are, revenue, and so forth. And what I've found is typically three 3 million to 15 million in terms of revenue are the businesses that we help, service-based businesses. Most of them have been marketing agencies, e-commerce, and service. I think e-commerce is a bit of a red herring, but it's mostly service-based businesses and a very heavy weight of marketing agencies. And I would bring e-commerce to the table purely because marketing agencies work with e-commerce, and e-commerce works with marketing agencies, and they refer each other and they have similar things. So typically revenue 3 million to 15 million, 5 to 25 staff. And below 5 members of staff, they won't tend to engage us because we're offering a fractional operator who will come in on a month-to-month basis and help them uplift operations. And if it's less than 5 members of staff, even if they've got quite a large revenue, we'll find that the founder is still going to try. They're not going to try and get outside help to deal with operations. Above 25 members of staff, they're turning into a pretty serious operation by then. We have worked with bigger teams, but that tends to be the sweet spot. And so the step is I've typically been referred someone, again, it's a founder dependent business. They're time poor. There's operational chaos. They might have a general manager or a COO, but they're struggling perhaps due to size or growth of the business. And so people come to us because they want us to have a look to see what's going on and to see if we can make recommendation and fix. And so it starts with a diagnostic. It starts with, I call it the operational health assessment. And I call it that because it sounds a lot nicer than audit. I think if you tell a team that they're getting audited, it gets their backs up.
No one wants
And
to
we're
be
there.
audited.
You don't want to be audited. So we're there to have a look at what's happening in the operations and work with the team to make an improvement. And so that's the framing. And that's something that we do within a month. And the process is, and I'll get to the things that we look for as a part of remediation, but the process is we come in, we talk to the founder, we want to understand what their vision is and what their pains are. And then over the process of a month, we'll talk to typically their their main contact points in the team. So if they've got a fairly big team, it's going to be their main people they're talking to every day. And we want to understand what are the things they're doing, what are their operational rhythms, what are the tools that they're using, how do they communicate. And then every week for a month, we'll play back to the founder, this is what we're seeing, this is what we would actually do about it. And at the end of the month, we play back, here are all the things we found, prioritized by effort and impact. And I'll tell you what those things are in just a moment. But the reason I wanted to talk about that as a process is because it's very tempting, and I have done this in the past, for businesses to say, we've got a fire, just come in and help us fix. But if you do that, you can't see the wood through the trees, and you can end up just joining them in the chaos. And so a part of this is very powerful in, firstly, listening to the team, finding out what they see, finding out what their challenges are, finding out what the founders' challenges are as well. And by listening to the team, quite often they're going to see we have our own list of things that we're looking for, but they're going to have a lot of observations as well. And this is a part of also getting buy-in from them because we are able to put where their changes are that they think should happen in the priority list. It might not necessarily mean it gets bumped up to number one, but that's a part of the process. So first, that's the operational assessment. Now, at the end of that process, the founder will have a choice whether they now want to do it themselves and work with the team. We've told them how they'll fix it, or they want to have us come in on a month-to-month basis and remediate. And so what does that look like? So I've already mentioned we start with vision. So let's make it real. I worked with a SEO business a year ago now who was doing about 3 million in revenue, team of 15. So I asked the founder, can you explain your vision? And so the founder explains a vision. It's crystal clear. It's a white glove, silver platter service for a few clients, very high touch, high net worth clients. When I talk to the team have a different view, which was surprising. The team have a view of, well, it's maximizing clients and trying to serve them as efficiently as possible, and they're very diverging. And this sounds crazy, right? But I see this all the time. I talk to founders who have a clear vision, but it's not written down and shared. And so what I found, one of the most effective ways to do this, and I know you've had this guest on your show as well, a vivid vision, or as Cameron Herald also used to call it, is to paint a picture. And so this is just a way of the founder explaining their vision. What does good look like? What would how are our interactions with the team? What do their customers say about them? What will the business look like in 3 years? What are their core values? And unlike just a vision statement, this paints a very clear picture, not just to the people in the team of where they want to go, but it can also be used to attract and repel team and attract and repel clients. So we start with vision, and that's a really powerful tool for aligning the team. And just to tell you what it looks like, we also worked with a legal firm 2 months ago, and they already had this vision. They shared it with the team before we even came in. They said, we're a multidisciplinary team. We want some kind of level of central governance so we can onboard within a month. And so we're able to come in, see that vision, and in 1 month of starting with this business, we were able to work with a team and help and execute. So first step is vision. Do they have the vision?
How often do you see that they don't, or that they have a view of what great looks like, but it hasn't been shared? Is it more common than not?
More common than not. I mean, if I ask the founder what good looks like, and I ask them to share what they want the business to look like in 1 or 3 years, they can tell me. But if I say, great, point me to that, more than half the time, it's either not there or the team haven't been aware of it for a long time. It's the worst case one that I've seen was there was a business that had a vision document and 10 core values, which in my opinion is way too many, and the founder couldn't even tell me what they were. So, a vivid vision is a really nice, powerful artifact because it can be put on your website, shown to business to say, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is where we want to go, these are the kind of clients that we want to attract, and everyone can see it. So that's a really powerful way to start.
And I've had Cameron Hurled on, and we're a huge fan of the vivid vision, getting a clear understanding of what great looks like, where is it you want to go, and and why do you want to go there? What does it look like when you arrive there? In terms of getting really visceral about the different aspects of this business, what customers will say about you, what your team will say, how are your leadership team performing, what's being said out in the marketplace about your brand, and and you start to kind of invoke emotions from people like, oh yes, that's what we want to be part of. I spoke to a founder yesterday who's exactly as you describe. He's time poor, he's on the verge of burnout, business doing 4 million in revenue. He wants to double it, but he's conscious that everything comes through him. Nobody around here ever comes up with anything new. It's always me that has to do this, and but he wants to double the business, and we got into that, and he started to share his passion about the brand that he'd built and how he could take this brand into other markets, and how he's so proud of the Trustpilot reviews. And I said, like, just in that couple of minutes there, I'm starting to get passionate about your business. He said, have you shared this with your teams? No. Well, no one knows where you're going, so what are they going to be accountable for? And that
Yeah.
that
How can they
so
help you get there?
yeah, exactly that. So it resonates so strongly. So getting clear on where it is that we're going. What
Mm.
else is part of
Mm.
the remediation process once you've completed your operational assessment, Lloyd?
Yeah, so that's the first bit is vision, and then we were at the soft, fluffy end first, but I feel like it needs to be said first. So vision, values, which normally accounts for a part of that vivid vision piece, and we want to know the values because one mistake I've seen again and again is that founders hire for skill, which is important, and then they neglect character. So they don't check references, and this is in corporate world. Yeah, absolutely, always checking references, but in small to medium enterprise, uh, there's a lot of focus on skill, but not on character. And as a result, I see in a lot of businesses, they've found someone that doesn't necessarily align with their values. And then the founder keeps them in for whatever purpose. Maybe they like, this is a very skilled person. Um, and now they're starting to feel held hostage by that person because they really need what that person has, and then they're not quite sure how they can transfer and get this person out in the least in the most effective way. So we want to see this is about right people, right seats, and so it's ultimately about understanding have we got the people with the right values and the right characteristics, and we can do the quick test of list out the people in your business and list out your core values across the top and just go tick, tick, tick. Do these people really adhere to this? Are they the right fit? So that's like one lens that we apply to see if have you got the right people in your business? Now, before we even get to skill, because when we've got a team of 10 or above, the likelihood that they've got poor fit people in their business is very high. And it can be a number of reasons. It can be they neglected the character test. It could be that they hired a family member and perhaps they're a bit blindsided. They're a bit, I would say, blinded by the fact that they're a family member. I see this a lot. Or any number of reasons why, but the character test. And then the other thing is then looking at skill and checking the right people are in the right seats. So just looking broadly at the structure of the business and saying, have we got the right people who fit the values and have we got them in the right seats? Now, if I go back to that SEO agency example that I talked about, actually everyone that they had was a good character fit. So there was no problem there. But in terms of this business, what I observed is that they had a delivery manager who was very good at delivering projects, but he'd done such a wonderful job that the founder went, you know what? I'm going to promote him to run the entire operation. And there was a big problem with that because he didn't really, had no experience in running an entire operation before. So that's one problem. He didn't want that, which is a really important thing, right? Like he's just been promoted, thanks, but he doesn't want to do that. And then he doesn't actually have the capacity to do it either because he's still overlooking delivery. So this is a check that we can do during this assessment to get an understanding of the right people in the right seats, because as we go into remediation later, that's where we can say, right, now how would we change the structure? Who would we move here? Does this person belong? Are they in the right role? And so forth. So that's the second piece I would look at.
Yeah, I'm smiling because it's a mistake that I've certainly made throughout my career is promoting the brilliant subject matter expert, often, and it's often within sales roles, promoting that wonderful salesperson who is, knocking it out of the park, consistently delivering, the £1 million a year, and you want to reward him, you want to acknowledge him, and guess what you do? You promote him, give him another kind of 20% raise in his base salary, ask him to still deliver his £1 million, and by the way, will you build a team of 5 others who are also delivering £1 million each? Thanks very much. We're so pleased with you. What you've just done is put a noose around this person's neck. They've no people management experience. Back to your point, often don't want to do it. They love. It's taking messy taking Messi out of full forward and now asking him to coach a team and to go and view other matches and kind of bring talent into the team and train them. And but by the way, we want you to consistently score here week in, week out. And so we talk about the right jockeys on the right horses running the right race. So critically important. So this resonates strongly. So we've got clarity of the vision, the character test by virtue of the values. Lloyd, you mentioned you had one company with 10. How many do you feel is appropriate here in terms of the values of the organization?
Oh, I really like 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think beyond 5, it's like if I ask I mean, 6 might be okay, but 3 to 5 is perfect. I've got 3 in my own business. Beyond 5, if I was to ask people in the team, like, do you actually know, tell me the core values, I don't reckon they'll remember.
Yeah.
So, and it's got to mean something. It's got to be a meaningful value. And I say this because it's got to be something that you would actually use. So, for example, in my business, I've got we are artists. And what I mean by that is this is about ownership. I want artists, not workers. I want people that I can say, here's the outcome. Be an artist and go and solve this. And I think I got this idea from Seth Godin about the difference between work and art, by the way. And so that's the kind of people I want. And so if I was giving someone feedback, an improvement feedback or something that they'd done well, I would try and align it meaningfully, if it's relevant, with one of the values, because I'm trying to reinforce the culture that I really want to build in this business. And so if they're just a number of values that don't mean anything and there's too many of them, what's the point? So the filter is it's got to be meaningful and usable. It is a weaponized value.
Yeah, I completely agree. Our equivalent of that is we own it, and we have one-to-ones right across the team. It's peer-to-peer, so there's no hierarchy as such as peer-to-peer, and it's our 3-2-1 feedback. 3 strengths aligned to the value, 2 areas where you can leverage that value for the benefit of the business, and one piece of feedback to help this person be better.
Love it.
And so, we own it. We win together. We are authentically ourselves. I kind of wince when I hear people talking about integrity and respect.
Overused.
Yeah,
It's implicit.
Exactly. It's just table stakes, So, okay. Let's move on. So, vision, values. What else are you doing?
Let's get into the meat of it now. Yeah. So now we're in probably my favorite one, accountability. And I know I've talked about accountability a lot, but for accountability to be, I'm trying not to use the word enforced, but I mean to really make accountability work, to have that structure, I believe you need 2 things. You need visibility and verification. And I also think that really clarity, delegation, accountability are very much in the same vein. So we were talking about a similar thing here. So visibility, what do I mean? First of all, if we talk about the right people, right seats, then I'm thinking a lot about what does a business org chart look like? And to me, I don't necessarily mean in roles like you're a marketer, this is specifically your set of things. I mean, okay, you've got a box with your name on it. What are the list of things in the box that you look after? So you might be someone who looks after marketing. You might have a few other responsibilities as well. So the first level I like to have is visibility of the main high-level processes they look after. So yes, it might be marketing, sales, IT, and so forth, but there's likely to be 3 to 5 big items in there as well. So it might be that the COO also looks after finance, so we're going to list those things against his or her name. So that's one lens of visibility to make sure we understand who's accountable for what. Then I go down another level and say, well, what is it at a process level? Now, this is my favorite because there's a very quick win here, which is a lot of businesses talk about, you know what, we don't have as many processes as we need. We know we don't have all these documented processes. We know it's going to take a huge amount of effort for the founder to write all of these SOPs and get them shipped out. But actually, one of the most powerful things you can do is workshop with your team. Like, what are the key processes that run this business? What are they? If you track the journey of money as it comes into our business and through until it gets delivered, until it hits our bank account, what are those processes that really are the most important, crucial things that run our business? Now, if I was to list out those processes, I would want a name against each of those. And that's the bit that's often missing, because if you are able to take the key processes that run your business and put a name against each, then when it comes to making sure that there's an SOP, making sure that there's someone who's going to be trained, someone else who can run that SOP, making sure it's maintained, it all starts with that name. So it just starts there. And the next thing I was going to say about, it's in the founder's mind. How does it end up in a how does it end up in a process document? Well, a lot of founders think that they need to be the person to write up the process, but actually that leads to poor ownership. And so I'm going off on a little sidetrack since I'm here. I hope that's okay.
No, because I mean this is important. Again, we're speaking to time poor founders. I want to make sure that this isn't overly abstract and right. So now you're asking me to take time out to understand all the end-to-end processes, and when I've done that, you want me to capture these and write them down, and are you not listening to me? I'm time poor. So what does that look like, Lloyd, for the time poor founder? How do they? What's the minimum viable action here in terms
Yes.
of actually starting the beginning of them seeing results?
Yeah. So all it takes for them is, after they've assigned that process to somebody and they need to show them how to do it, it can be as simple as firing up Zoom with them, hit and record, talking them through the process. And I call it the I, we, you. I do it. I share my screen. I hit record. It could be my bookkeeping. I train my VA in the Philippines how to do my bookkeeping. And I hit record and I say, okay, when this happens, this reconciles like this, click, click, click. And then I say to him, okay, next is I want you to turn this into your SOP. So he will document the main steps. Now, I don't expect him to get that straight away. It's gonna take a few runs at this. So I do it. The next step is we do it. So we're going to have another conversation. I'm going to now let him drive, him use the mouse, him click around, and we'll still have a conversation. But he's got me as a safe. There's some safety rails there, so he can now ask me questions. But all of his questions will get fed back into his process, which he owns, which he's accountable for. And then finally, when he's comfortable, you do it. It's his. He owns it. He's got his name against that process. It's now his job to make sure that that process is documented, make sure it runs. And if he goes on holiday, he should be responsible for training up and make someone else be able to execute that process. But he also has an opportunity to make someone else accountable and pass that baton to someone else when he trains someone up. So that's a really simple process mapping, listing out the processes, I, we, you to hand it over. So that was the first part of visibility of accountability. So we've got org chart level, we've got process level, and then the final piece in there is task level. And as a founder, you don't really want to be in your task manager, your ClickUp, your Monday.com, all of these tools. Ideally, that's not the place you're spending time. If you have clearly handed over a role to someone, ideally you've got an operator who is project managing and running the team and making sure that these things are getting done. So that's where we're looking, like, how is this being set up? Do we have that level of accountability, those three levels of accountability? So that's one of the things we're looking for. But then the second part's really important as well, which is the verification. Because if you say all of these are things that you're accountable for, but then you don't verify, what happens is, well, tasks start mounting up and then people start saying, oh, well, ClickUp doesn't work, Asana doesn't work. And so they just they blame the tool. And accountability is not enforced. So this is the part where you need operational rhythms in the business, which is the next part I'll briefly mention. But you need operational rhythms in the business to be checking that the tasks are moving and there's no blockers. and then you need to be checking the reds and greens of the business. We know these people are accountable for certain things. We know marketing are measured by um, qualified leads, and sales are measured by sales conversions, and we're measuring these things on a dashboard. Now we need to verify. So we need to make sure that tasks are moving and that uh, we've got the greens and the reds are trending green. So that is, in a nutshell, what I take away from accountability. And if I look at that in the sense of, if I go back to my example of the SEO business, when we looked there, we found that, first of all, they didn't have all of these three layers. They did have, as many businesses do, the task management tool. And there's a lot of activity in the task management tool. But there isn't that clean up sweep, those daily huddles to check that things are getting blocked. There's not just tasks mounting up. And what we also found is that there was a case where there were two people accountable for the same area, and that's a real big problem. So if we have, in this example, there's client communications going out to all of their customers, and it was a mix of account management and delivery team, and so it can get very confusing. Who's going to go back to the customer? Is it the account manager or is it the delivery team? And so by making those accountabilities really clear, okay, it's the account manager. Any external communication is always going to be the account manager. That's where the visibility comes in, and then the verification comes in.
Yeah, to quote a former guest on the show, Jack Daly, dual responsibility is no responsibility. So I love the we do that. So I do it. I showcase what I've done to the delegated person. Then we do it jointly to get a sense that the person is understanding of what I've just showed them, and then they do it.
Then
love
they do
that.
It, you do it. Yeah.
Love that. So you just to bring that together, because there's a number of things you've. The step here is to ensure that we embed accountability into the culture of the business. Two steps here: creating visibility, and then verifying that actually we're making progress. You mentioned in that, the org level, the process level, the task level. Just kind of map that into visibility and verification, because what I'm hearing here is, at an organizational level, we want to ensure we have an understanding and clarity of where we're going. What are the end-to-end processes that are currently in place to achieve what we're trying to do? Then, from an organizational level, being clear as to who's responsible for, the various processes, and then define what tasks are required to actually ensure the efficacy of the process.
Exactly. Yes.
Brilliant. So let's moving on to rhythm then, which you've mentioned a couple of times. Mm-hmm. You've thrown daily huddle in there. What is it? Mm-hmm. What's the optimum rhythm to actually now get the operational wheels turning, kind of the founder starting to feel kind of less chaotic, starting to buy back time, starting to get more passion around the business because they're not sucked into the weeds? What is this optimum rhythm?
Yeah, I see two extremes. I see founders that do not enough meetings at all, and as a result, the team just disconnect, and they do too many things asynchronously, and they send messages on Slack. But then, as you send text messages on Slack, people can disconnect, and they can also interpret words the wrong way. So this is how a team slowly disconnects when they don't get enough face time. Or I see the other extreme where there's just a business that has started with a team of 5, where they could have everybody involved in every decision. There's now a team of 10 or a team of 20, and bringing everybody into a meeting every time for every decision is just very, very inefficient. And that is one of the things that I see. And then so the SEO business I was talking about, in this particular case, they were having too many meetings. They'd grown from 5, they'd moved into 10, they're having too many. And so the classic rhythm that I really like, there's 5 rhythms that I like to run in a business. Very simple. First is to just have a very simple connect. We borrow from EOS in this particular framework, so we call it the same page meeting. And that's really just the founder who's in the visionary role looking at strategy is going to have a connect with their what I call operator, but it can be their COO, general manager, director of operations. And that is where they're going to talk about the priorities. So this is where that operator is going to bring to them, hey, here's all the things that I'm seeing in the business at the moment. This is the priority order that I think we should attack these items. And by the way, that priority list comes straight out of our ops assessment. That's how it was born in the first place. So that is the list that needs to be executed on. And this is a time for the founder and the operator to come together and work through these issues and agree and solve and so forth. And what I see if businesses don't do this is eventually founder and operator just move apart, and it's an important meeting to happen. So the first one is the same page meeting. The second one I would say is a team meeting or a leadership team meeting. So particularly in that realm of 5 to 25 staff, making sure that the key leads of the business are connected. And this is not a updates meeting, as I see done badly. I see leadership meetings. I go into them when we're doing the assessment, and it's just a chat fest of updates, and they're just airing, what's on their mind. But what it really should be is, here are the operational reds and greens. Here are the things that we're looking at in the business. This is how we get a view of the health of our business with our weekly scorecard of items. And now, what will it take to make that red a green? Who needs to be in here to pull aside to work on this item and make red a green? And if there's anything they need from anybody right here, right now in that meeting, a resource or spend or anything to make that red and green, go for it. Otherwise, they pull away and they can go work on that item separately. So it's a really, really important rhythm for the business. Otherwise, the other three that we would run are one-on-ones to stay connected with the team, support them throughout their goals, but also just stay connected with them. I think while I'm someone who talks about process and structure and all of these things, you can run through the list of things that you're going to run through with a team member, but if you don't have a periodic catch, like a virtual coffee with them, you'll miss the 11th thing you never found out about, like something significant in their life is happening for them, like they're getting married or they're going to move to another place or something like that. So one-on-ones are really important, and are probably one of the meetings that I see abandoned the most, and they should happen at least every couple of weeks. Then there's the huddles that I spoke about earlier. So this is really just to remove blockers. Short, sharp, 15 minutes. What are the tasks that are being worked on by the project delivery team? What's being blocked? Who's needed to unblock? Move along. And that links back to that verification space earlier when we were talking about accountability. This is how we make sure that things aren't bubbling up. And then similarly, when I talked about that leadership meeting earlier, that's the verification piece that plugs into the accountability to make sure that those reds are being watched for. And then finally, just feedback loops. So this is the fifth operational rhythm. So feedback loops. This is the process of how your business gets better. You've got events or campaigns that run. So if you're a marketing business, you might have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Father's Day, whatever it is, however many events throughout the year, you're going to go through some kind of campaign. After that campaign, there needs to be a feedback loop. What worked well? What didn't work well? How can we now take whatever processes that we have and improve them? If it worked well, how do we do more of that? If it didn't work well, how do we fix that from ever happening again? And so I use feedback loops to describe process change in terms of the business, but also process change in terms of if someone in your business is not performing, that's also a feedback loop. Like having a chat with them, understanding what's happening from them, listening to them, but also if there's feedback to be given, okay, what do we need to do to rectify? So those are the 5 rhythms that we would use in a business.
Before we move into the close, frequency, same page meetings, is this once a quarter, making sure everyone's aligned behind the vision? Leadership team meetings, what are we saying on a monthly basis?
I'm
What
really
frequency?
focused here on week to week execution here. So I
Week to
run
week. Okay.
same page every week, founder and operator team meeting every week. I mean, this is just 5 to 25 staff. This isn't, we're even not getting to the quarterly rocks and all of those things. This is just, there is operational chaos happening. How do we get out of it? What are the core meetings that need to run? Same page team meetings, one-on-ones, huddles, and feedback loops. Like those things are the key meetings that happen very regularly, weekly, and will get you out of the chaos. That's the right level of cadence.
Quick one on feedback, because many of the founders, certainly that I would be dealing with or within our community, struggle with giving feedback. If you're saying there's a weekly cadence here, what does that look like?
If I'm giving someone a feedback, and let's say it's an opportunity for improvement, then I want to see their eyes. And a mistake that I see is someone sees something. It might be there's a pattern emerging that someone is periodically and more frequently late to meetings or doesn't show, as an example, or dropped the ball. So the feedback should be delivered as soon as to the event as possible, because if it gets sat on, it sounds malicious almost when they've sat on it for so long. And it needs to be, if it's a virtual business like mine, it needs to be a call, or if you're a business where you can go and see them, go see them. But definitely not something where you give them some feedback over a message, which is a mistake I've seen a number of times, because it just won't carry the tone. And I want to be able to hear the other side. So before I go launch into giving a feedback, I want to say, look, hey, this is what was observed. What did you see? Or can you explain what's happened here? Now, there might be a very good reason for whatever happened, but if it's a trend, you're still going to be tracking this over and over again. And then the framework I like to use is probably a bit outdated now, but the ingredients that I like to include in a feedback are beer.
Brilliant.
So, for an Englishman to talk about beer, I mean, there we go. So,
people will remember this.
Behavior. What was the behavior? So I asked them about the behavior that was observed. So I want to catch that. Now I've listened to the other side. What was the effect of that behavior? And I'll play out an example in a minute. What did I expect to see that would be done differently? And what's the result of that improvement? So that's the very logical thing to use in a feedback. Now, if in your feedback you can tie that opportunity in with one of your core values and say, and this is aligned with doing this, this is a core value that we really want people to take ownership of. We are artists as a core value of ours, and this is something we really want. Then bring that in. It's just reinforcing that. And a final piece on that is some people will listen to your logical argument, beer, and some people will listen to the feeling. You have to be very careful with the feeling. So the feeling might be you were disappointed. I'm being very careful not to be manipulative here or overcook it. And for some people, it's a very powerful thing. So some people will listen to the logic and some people will listen to the emotion. But I just throw the feeling in there, but it's very careful with that. So for example, I can think of a feedback that I was given years ago in corporate world, and it went, so this was me being the receiver, and it went, so when I looked at the ingredients, it went something like this. It was something like, Lloyd, I really appreciated the way you were contributing to the meeting, but if I note from the others in the meeting, they weren't given the opportunity to speak as much. And so the effect was we had people in this meeting that perhaps would have been more vocal or being able to speak up, but where you'd really be able to help is bring out the best in the others, and the result of that would have more diversity of opinion, something like that. So those ticked most of the boxes of beer when I mention that, but you've got to make it real as well. But those are the things, if you're going to apply feedback, those are the things I put in there.
I love that. I love that. And beer might be a good place to end on, Lloyd. Is there anything before we move into our formal close that you feel we haven't touched upon that we should, just in the interest of giving people something practical to action on, on Monday? So, founder listening to this, who resonates strongly with everything you're saying. I mean, you had them at time per. What advice would you give to them, after listening to this? What's their next step?
So it's Monday morning, and you've got all of these things coming at you. You've got people asking you those, just a quick question kind of things coming up. Go through your week and write down all of those questions, all of the type of things that come up for that whole week. Just write them down. Might be a Google sheet you leave open for the week. And this will help you build a profile of or a trend or a picture of where you're the bottleneck in your business. Now, by Friday, pick the most frequent, low stakes decision and push it down to the team and say, you own this. This is make it clear how that is handled. Do that every week. And you'll find that you will, more and more things, piece by piece, slowly by slowly, things will come off your plate.
Love that. Love that. That is so actionable, so practical. Love that. Lloyd, given the fact that, you're an entrepreneur yourself, you've incredible experience across a very similar community to ours. Now a father, you understand the pressures of balancing family life and business life. And can you share with our listeners 3 timeless takeaways?
Absolutely. And I knew this was coming in your podcast. So I've got my 3 favorite ready for you. So firstly, your business isn't scalable until you're replaceable. Shouldn't be about you. And even if exiting your business isn't your priority, it's just something you should do to reach the next level of growth in your business. That's the first thing. And by the way, a buyer doesn't want to buy a job. They want to buy a business. Complexity kills momentum. So keep it simple. Visionary founders often do too many things. If they looked at what was giving them the best bang for buck, the 80-20, and double down on the things that were working, they'll get there faster. Keep it simple. And then the third thing, and I think we've talked about this a lot in this podcast, lead with clarity. When the team knows exactly what good looks like, they'll surprise you every day.
There's so much wisdom in every single one of those, Lloyd. Thank you. Thank you so much. Look, what's next for you? What's other than getting some rest this evening? What's happening in Lloyd's world and Virtual Dough?
Yeah, so in 2026, I'm going to be upping my content game. So I've started to record some solo episodes, podcasts. So I quite often fortunate enough to guest on podcasts, but now I'm going to start to produce some solos. I've recently started offering a free operational assessment. It's a very quick 5-minute survey. So that's been something I've been doing. So that's now available on my website, and I'm just seeing how that goes. I've got a good bit of feedback from that so far. I've called that out at events, and it's just a quick survey where you fill out a questionnaire and it gives you your where it thinks your biggest operational bottleneck is. And I think finally losing dad bod.
Back out on the waves.
Got to get back out on the surf, lose 15 kilos. So that's in the vision plan for 2026.
Brilliant. Love it. Look, Lloyd, if people want to connect with you, maybe take your operational assessment, how best to reach you?
Yeah, so reach out to me at my website, virtualdoo.com. And if you'd like to take the assessment, that's virtualdoo.com/assess. Or otherwise, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll easily find me. My name is Lloyd Thompson. And you'll see my dog sat on my lap with his bow tie on as well. So that's definitely me if you see Lloyd Thompson with a dog on his lap.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Look, I want to thank you for, spending your time with us this evening. I appreciate it's late. You've delivered so much practical, actionable wisdom in all of that. This is certainly an episode I will go back and listen to again. I invite my listeners to do the same. I wish you every success in everything you're doing. You're doing good in the world, my friend, for all of those business leaders who have aspirations to scale with purpose. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here and talk with you, Brendan.